The quarterback class for this year's NFL draft is loaded with talent, but depending on who you talk to, these quarterbacks may rank in different orders. So in today's video, we'll talk about my thoughts on each quarterback and where I would rank them. Let's get right into it. If you've not already, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm uploading multiple sports videos every single week, so your support goes a long way. But anyways, getting right into things, the unanimous or almost unanimous #1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft is Trevor Lawrence. And of course, I'm going to have him #1 on my list, because if you don't have him #1 on your list, then you don't watch football and you don't know just how good this guy is. Trevor Lawrence is pretty much the safest pick in this year's draft, quarterback position, or really honestly any position, and he's probably one of the safest quarterback picks in the last decade. This dude is just an all-around beast. He's the stereotypical quarterback that anybody would want on their team, and if you are drafting #1, Trevor Lawrence is definitely your guy. He's a 6'6" quarterback with a huge arm. He's obviously a proven winner. He played at Clemson. He won a national championship. This dude is the quarterback for one of the greatest teams of all time, one of the greatest dynasties of all time in college football. There's not much to say about Trevor Lawrence. We already know how good he is, so I will not run on about Trevor Lawrence. He's the #1 guy in this year's NFL draft. Now, after Trevor Lawrence, this is where most people's lists differ when it comes to where they rank the quarterbacks. But I think that a lot of people will agree with me here when I have Zach Wilson as the #2 quarterback. It is reported that the Jets are pretty much locked in on Zach Wilson. He is going to be the #2 pick, and I think that for the Jets, that is a great pick. Now, do I want to see Zach Wilson on the New York Jets? No. I would much rather see him go to a team like the 49ers at #3. Will that happen? Probably not, because like I said, I've heard that the Jets are locked in on Zach Wilson. But Zach Wilson is a high-risk, high-reward draft prospect. Now, I don't think that he is going to be a bust or he will completely be terrible with New York, but I do think that they are taking a risk with putting him in a position where they put Sam Darnold in several years ago, and look how that turned out. Now, Zach Wilson, in my opinion, is a better prospect than Sam Darnold was, but if Jets fans and Jets management think that Zach Wilson is going to come in and save their franchise, they are dead wrong. Now, I do like that the Jets brought in new coaches, and I think that this will help Zach Wilson and his development, but I think that what the Jets need to have is patience with Zach Wilson, because even though I do think that he is right behind Trevor Lawrence when it comes to these quarterback rankings for this year's NFL draft, and I think that he probably has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this draft, including Trevor Lawrence. I think that he could be the best quarterback in this draft if things go right for him, but things could also go very wrong, and they often do with the Jets. But there's a lot to like about Zach Wilson. He has a very big arm, arguably the biggest arm in the draft. It's either him or Trevor Lawrence, and he is just a playmaker. He makes some ridiculous throws. He led BYU this whole season, and he kind of came out of nowhere when it comes to these quarterback rankings. Zach Wilson is my personal favorite, most exciting quarterback to watch in this year's NFL draft, and I hope that the Jets can surround him with enough help and they can develop him into the quarterback that I know he can become, because he is getting some ridiculous comparisons like Patrick Mahomes, like other Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and I think it is unfair to put those expectations on him. But I think that his ceiling is very, very high up there, and if the Jets can develop him right, he could be the best quarterback in this year's draft. Now, for my third best quarterback in this year's NFL draft, many people will definitely agree with me, but others will definitely not agree with me, and I have Justin Fields as the third best quarterback prospect in this year's NFL draft. Now, it's been reported that with the #3 overall pick, Mac Jones is likely to be taken by the 49ers. That isn't a certain thing. That isn't a 100% done deal, kind of like the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Trevor Lawrence and even the Jets taking Zach Wilson. I think that those two picks are kind of locked in. I mean, nothing's guaranteed, but I think we all know who's going #1 and 2. Mac Jones has been reported to be the third guy that is going to be taken, but that is less sure than the top two picks, and I think that if the 49ers do pass on Justin Fields, if they do take Mac Jones instead, I do think they would be making a big mistake. Now, that's not to say that Mac Jones is bad, but Justin Fields is my third best quarterback in this year's NFL draft for a reason. Now, Justin Fields isn't a guy who is going to be a huge arm, bomb it down the field type of guy. He's not going to be a guy who makes insane throws, but he is going to be a guy who gets the job done and makes plays when he needs to. Like I said, he doesn't have the biggest arm of anybody in this draft. Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson definitely have a lot bigger arms than Justin Fields does, but Justin Fields is probably the most athletic quarterback in this year's NFL draft, and like I said, he makes plays when he needs to. He's just a winner, and I think that the questions around him, while they are valid, I don't think that they will be an issue when he gets to the NFL. Seeing him play on Ohio State through injuries, through adversity, he oftentimes went to the first guy. That is one of his criticisms, that he often throws it to the first guy he looks at. But the first guy that he looked at was open a lot of the time. I think that Justin Fields gets a lot of unnecessary criticism, a lot of undeserved criticism. And I think that people who are ranking other quarterbacks ahead of him are not looking at just how good of a player he is. He can make plays with his arms and his feet. And like I mentioned before, he played through injuries. He gets the job done when he needs to. And I think that, like I said before, if the 49ers pass up on Justin Fields at number 3, I think that they would be making a big mistake. Now, moving on to my fourth best quarterback in this year's NFL draft, the two guys that I have are very, very, very similar. I don't know if I would have them they're tied for me, honestly. It's kind of a 4A and 4B thing where you could flip-flop these guys with their rankings. But the first guy that we're going to talk about is Mac Jones. And while I did just say that I think that the 49ers taking him at number 3 would be a mistake, which I do still believe, Mac Jones is not a scrub by any means. Mac Jones is a very good quarterback, and he's a guy who is going to be a very safe pick, and I'm sure that whatever team gets him will be happy with him. Mac Jones is an unathletic pocket passer, so he's not going to wow you with his athleticism. He has no type of athleticism, honestly, and he doesn't have a huge cannon of an arm either. But what he does have is football IQ. He knows how to read defenses, and he knows how to get the job done. He just most of the time makes the right decisions, and seeing him win a championship at Alabama with all of the weapons that he had just showed how versatile and how effective he can be if he has weapons around him. I think that if Mac Jones gets put into the right system with good weapons at receiver and running back like he had at Alabama, a team will have a lot of success, or that offense will have a lot of success as Mac develops and gets older and gets comfortable with the NFL. So while I don't think that he is a top 3 quarterback in this year's draft, I think that he's a very safe pick, and I think that he's going to be a guy who has a long career in the NFL. Now, the next guy that I would put right there with Mac Jones, and you could flip-flop these two guys personally on my list, and that guy is obviously Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance is definitely a riskier pick than Mac Jones is, but he also has a higher ceiling, and I think that if a team is willing to take that risk and they have the right pieces around him and the right coaches to coach him up, I think that Trey Lance could make a team very, very happy, and he could be the sleeper of this draft, honestly. Trey Lance is one of the best decision makers I have seen at the quarterback position coming into an NFL draft. And even though he does play in the FCS, he plays for North Dakota State, so obviously the competition level is going to be lower than it is for these SEC guys, for these ACC guys, for the FBS guys in general. He's going to have lower levels of competition, but I don't think that that should be something that completely rules him out. And even though it is more of a risk to draft him because of that, I don't think that that should be a huge asterisk on him. Whether it's running or passing, Trey Lance does not really make mistakes. He threw very few interceptions. It was a rarity for him to ever make a bad throw or an errant throw, or just a throw that was even a risky throw. Trey Lance does not take risks, and like I said, even in the running game, he's very smart to slide. He's very smart to get out of bounds. He's a guy who is not going to get injured for these reasons. He's not going to put himself in danger. He's not going to throw throws that put his team or his teammates in danger. Like I said, just a very, very good decision maker, and he also has some decent athleticism that allows him to make plays as well. The biggest concern for Trey Lance is obviously that the NFL competition will get to him and that he won't be able to get past that learning curve, and that the NFL competition, that very high, that very raised level of competition, will expose his weaknesses, because honestly, we haven't seen very many weaknesses from Trey Lance at North Dakota State. It seems like a too good to be true situation, and a lot of people think that that is just because of his competition level. But I think that if a team is willing to take the risk on him, if a team is willing to have patience with him, I think that patience is going to be a huge thing for Trey Lance. And I think that whether he is a first-year starter or he sits on the bench, I just think that whoever drafts him needs to know that he is going to need a year or two, maybe even 3, to really reach comfort at the NFL level, to really get his system down, to really learn the NFL. And I think that if a team is willing to do this and he can develop with good weapons around him, I think that Trey Lance could be a very, very good quarterback, and he could be a higher ceiling guy than Justin Fields or Mac Jones if he lands in the right situation. Anyways, that is my list. Those are my quarterback rankings for this year's NFL draft. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know who your favorite quarterback to watch is, what quarterback you would want your team to have if you were drafting, and let me know what you guys think of this year's NFL draft class. Anyways, that is the video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.